Hello, my name's Cody. I'm a Spanish teacher here at the sixth grade level in Connecticut. And today's CT Colt Tip of the Week is on the topic of writing can-do statements. I'm going to share with you 4 different tips that will hopefully help you to not only write your can-do statements, but also to implement them in your classroom. Tip number 1, keep your can-do statement in the target language. Because students have limited time each week with us, it's important that we maximize the amount of time that students are exposed to the target language. We can keep our can-do statements in the target language by recycling vocab from previous units, using cognates, using language that's appropriate to their level, and using comprehensible input for vocab that goes beyond their knowledge. Tip number 2, you want your can-do statement to not be too broad and not too specific. Here's an example of a can-do statement that's a little too broad. Puedo hablar español. I can speak Spanish. Well, that's a little too broad in the sense that this is our goal every single day, or at least it should be, right? We want to develop our students' communicative proficiency. So something like this, well, this is our goal every single day, and it really doesn't relate to the lesson at hand. This next one's an example of a can-do statement that's a little too specific. Puedo usar mi conocimiento del idioma castellano para poder comunicarles a mis amigos los sabores de 5 platos latinos con al menos 2 detalles sin cometer ningún error. Well, this is a little too specific because this is now communicating different details about the assignment itself. For example, it says here 5 platos, 5 different dishes. 2 detalles, 2 details. These kinds of details are better left for later in the lesson when you're explaining the assignment itself. So this one, I would say, is a little too specific. This next can-do statement is an example of a can-do statement that I used with my own class, my 6th grade class, on a unit about food. Puedo describir el sabor de comida latina. I can describe the taste of Latin food. Now, later on in the lesson, when we got to the activity itself, I explained to students that they had to select 5 different dishes, and they had to use at least 2 details per dish. So as you'll notice, I didn't communicate that in my can-do statement. Instead, I kept my can-do statement somewhere in between too broad and too specific. It's kind of like the Goldilocks effect. Here's another can-do statement that I used in the beginning of this unit. Puedo identificar y escribir comidas en español. I can identify and write foods in Spanish. This can-do statement is direct, and it gives students an idea of what it is that they're expected to be able to do by the end of any given lesson or by the end of any given mini unit. Tip number 3, have them do something with it. Now, I make the mistake myself all the time of simply glossing over the can-do statement and not paying too much attention to it. Here are some ideas of things that you can do with your students with your can-do statement. Have students reflect on the real-world application of the can-do statement. Maybe you ask them, based off this can-do statement, how do you plan on using this information one day in the real world? When it comes back to my can-do statement about food, maybe I'll ask them, why is it important to be able to identify and write different foods in Spanish? How do you see yourself using this one day? Now, in a normal school year, maybe you have students turn and talk to each other before you share out as a group. If you're like me, you teach in the novice low level, you might have students do this in their native language, but if you teach at a more advanced level, you can have them do it in the target language. Another thing you can do is have students translate the can-do statement. Now, I personally am not a big fan of over-translating. I think that translating has its benefits, but it also has its flaws. One of the reasons at the 6th grade level, at the novice low level, that I like to have them translate the can-do statement is that it helps to ensure not only that they're comprehending it, but it also helps to build their communicative confidence early in the lesson. When students are able to say, hey, I know exactly what that means, it builds up their confidence in the beginning of the lesson, and it helps to set them up for success as the content becomes a little bit more rigorous. You could have students reflect on their current attainment of the can-do statement. So for example, if your can-do statement is spread across a whole entire week, maybe it's Wednesday, you ask students, hey, how do you think you're doing on a scale of 1 to 5 with this can-do statement? So have them reflect on their current progress. You could also have them think about what kinds of activities we may be doing in class based on that statement. This isn't one I do a lot, but it is a good one to do because this is like crowdsourcing. When I have students think about the kinds of activities that we're doing based on the can-do statement, they share with me some really amazing ideas that I may have not considered. Some of those ideas are worthy enough that I'll maybe use them the following day or the following week. It's a great way to get an idea of what kinds of activities students might find engaging. And last but not least, you want to have students assess their achievement of the can-do statement at the end of class. This might be in the form of an exit ticket. And last but not least, tip number 4, incorporate this into your routine. If you do this every now and then, once in a blue moon, what's going to happen is that students are going to wait until they're prompted before they engage with the can-do statement. You have the can-do statement up on the screen, but students aren't going to engage with it until you specifically ask them a question. However, if you do this every single day and you incorporate this into your routine, what's going to happen is that right from the moment they see it, they begin to engage with it. Why is that? Well, it's become so habitualized. Students expect that you're going to ask them questions related to the can-do statement, so because they've done it time and time again, they're going to engage with it the second they see it. They know that you're going to ask them the question, so they want to be ready for it. In doing this time and time again, you also frame how they interact with the language and its everyday use. So again, I hope these tips were helpful to you. I know a lot of teachers already do these things, but if you don't, hopefully you found something here helpful. I appreciate your time, and I challenge you, if you have the time and the desire, to submit your own video to CT Colt. Thank you for watching, y adios.